Oh, God. Yeah, that was my experience watching Hellboy 2019. Oy vey. Hey guys, I'm Alachia, and this is my review for Hellboy 2019, directed by Neil Marshall and written by Andrew Cosby. Now, Neil Marshall, he did a movie called Doomsday, Centurion, and The Descent. And while those aren't like critically acclaimed movies, I actually enjoyed them. They are definitely a take on the more kind of fantastical horror, dark, serious types of films that kind of do lean towards a little bit like ridiculous. So it worked. And so when they said he was going to do Hellboy, I thought this could work. And especially even after seeing the trailer, people were saying to me that they know people who are part of the production or know people who are involved with this movie, and they all said that it's going to be hard R. It is going to be super dark, super twisted, and that the trailers were kind of misguided and misleading as to like the campiness of it. But apparently, I think there were two movies being made here, and they did not intersect well. So as I said, this is not written by Neil Marshall. It is written by Andrew Cosby, who I don't think has previously written any screenplays for any movies. I think he's done TV work. And it's also based off of the stories by Mike Mignola, who had commented in articles basically saying that he saw things in production that looked like they were straight out of the comics, and he was very impressed. Mostly, I think, a lot of the work from the comic, the arc that includes the Wild Hunt, and the Wild Hunt being what this movie is largely based off of. And I think that from the bones of what I think the story is, it kind of creates this element of not just a reintroduction into Hellboy, but also kind of adding an extra layer of lore to his story, which is actually pretty interesting. It unfortunately is not executed well at all. It became an absolute mess, and I can't really blame the actors for, what went down, because I feel like David Arbor did the best he could with the Hellboy that he was given. Again, his costuming looked really off. It looked really weird. I know that it seemed like they were trying very, very hard to distinguish Ron Perlman's Hellboy from David Arbor's Hellboy. And in the end, I feel like the makeup it definitely felt like there was makeup on his face. His lips could hardly move. And if you watch the original Hellboys, although there's a lot of texturizing on Ron Perlman's face, the movement in his face and the facial expressions come out more. This, unfortunately, David Arbor just looks like he's just like, because he can't do anything. He can't express. He can't even act, because you can't see any of the expressions or any of the micro expressions that come across someone's face, because it's so heavily, I guess, latexed or whatnot put on. And then his body just was really weird. It was I think that's one of the cool things about the Hellboy comics is, and the interpretations that have come out of Hellboy, is that he works in so many different types of iterations. A version of him that looks super serious, a version of him that looks very comical, a version of him that looks really frumpy, and a version of him that looks very jacked. It works all the time. And I think they were trying to go with, I don't know, a version of him that looked like, kind of like a retired football player. It didn't really work for me. I wasn't really pumped to see this one. It was just like, ooh, yeah, you kind of let yourself go there, Hellboy. I'm not sure what happened to you. But yeah, and maybe that was just a combination of the suit. So the thing about the story that was just awful, I think, was the script and the dialogue. It couldn't jive well with, I think, the overall tone and direction that the movie was trying to go in. It constantly combated with it. So, for instance, you have this idea of an occult, right? That this occult underground that exists society that exists in this world. And that's in itself is very cool. It's very neat. But then when you kind of elevate that to the point where it's almost comical, to where you're making fun of that occult, where they're not like this cool society that exists and does this really cool thing in the background, but more like, oh, they're like the henchmen, or this society of dumbasses, and they do stupid stuff, and they act ridiculous, and over the top menacing in a way, and maybe over the top bigoted or over the top maniacal. It kind of takes away from a lot of that occult lore, and that definitely shined through. On top of it, you had Hellboy, who's consistently showcasing his abilities, and he's supposed to be this amazing kind of guy who is, on the one hand has a heart, is kind of aloof, and a little bit, on edge, but he's supposed to like kind of just kick ass. In this one, you could tell that's part of the portrayal. But in the end, in the action sequences, he's flying all over the place going like, oh, oh, whoa! And you're just like, oh God, he's just being slapped around, like a little bitch. And you're just like, what is happening to this character? It's not good. I don't like it. But he's just getting knocked around. And I think most of Hellboy's dialogue in this film is basically just going like, ah, ah! Just pew, pew, pew. Oh gosh, terrible. And I feel like, I don't know if it was the studio that was pushing against maybe what Neil Marshall's original vision for this film was, because you could tell from the art direction and the visual effects that someone had a really good idea of taking this next level kind of body horror, Diablo-esque, gory, really visually realistic in its graphic violence. And that I actually appreciated, where there were moments where I was like, this looks like something straight out of the anime Blood Sea. I was like, this is amazing. This is awesome. And then the next scene, you'd have Mila Jovovich's character, just the witch, just having this terrible dialogue, and monologuing, that whole fucking villain monologue thing about, about her vision for the future and getting her revenge, and her little henchman that she has with her, who is also kind of slapstick and silly. But then you counter it with like the type of violence you're seeing. So, for instance, I'll take one of the scenes where there's a troll, which you see in the trailer, or giant, and the giant is tearing people apart. I mean, limb from limb, you're seeing things flying, guts, intestines, brains. But at the same time, you have Hellboy in the background just going, what? And so there's this duality that doesn't really fit, where you have the idea of wanting it to be kind of lighthearted, comical, and silly, but at the same time graphically violent, and it just didn't work. It just didn't jive. There was a moment in the film where I could see the true vision come out, and that is when Hellboy has the vision. I think you see it in the trailers. Well, Hellboy has this vision of what he could become, and man, when that scene popped up, I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm looking for. And then they immediately went back to like a scene with him and Mila Jovovich talking yet again, and so I was like, okay, all right, now we're back here again, and now we're back to silliness. So, yeah, it was just really hard to watch. It was really hard to watch because I could see the potential underneath it the entire time. You could see the underlying sprinkles of what could have been. But overall, what we got was just bad writing. It was a bad performance. It visually just didn't jive in terms of the direction. But, yeah, so this ain't it. And it's just kind of funny because it does end with a mid-credit scene that, implies that they want to go ahead and do a sequel, but I'm just like, no, we don't. No, let's not do this. Let's not go in this direction. This is not a good idea. I mean, you even have characters whose names I barely remember, played by Daniel Kim and what's her name? Sasha Lane. Good actors. Their characters not even memorable. It's very interesting because if you remember the first Hellboy movie, the entire cast is memorable. You remember all of the different side characters that are in the film because they're given a lot of justice, they're given a lot to do, and these just were very weak, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm still super flabbergasted that we got this instead of a Hellboy 3 from Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman, but that's the way Hollywood works, apparently. So I'm gonna give Hellboy 2019 an F. Sorry, it just doesn't work. It's a mess. I do not recommend it at all. Go see Shazam instead. All right, guys, let me know what you guys thought, and thanks so much for watching. And if you'd like to watch more, you can click right here or right here to watch more now. Until next time, see you on the flip side.